ATA for losing my cool with my parents for pushing me to forgive my cheating ex? I was to be married in July. 2 months ago, I came home from a work trip to find my ex-fiancé in bed with my best friend's sister. I kicked him out, canceled the wedding, warned him I would get rid of his stuff if he didn't come get it all. Then weeks later, dumped it all on the curbside with a free sign, sold or donated or dumped everything he gave me, and pawned the ring. I blocked him everywhere. Called the cops on him when he showed up, after I gave his stuff away. Banging on my door. Called them again when he turned up at my workplace and made a scene, and called them on his family when they showed up en masse to plead his case. I didn't go scorched earth on ex-best friend's sister. I did tell her husband I caught her in bed with my ex. Last I heard, she'd been kicked out of the house and was back living with her parents. Ex-BFF tried talking me into giving them both a chance to explain what no. Then got angry at me for ruining her sister's relationship, called me petty and cold-hearted. So I kicked her to the curb too. I don't want dishonest people that are blasé about betrayal in my life. This encounter no doubt simmered under my skin until I unleashed on my parents. Maybe that's the reason, because it lingered. I was so harsh with them. Last week, I met my parents for dinner. I took a date with me to the restaurant hoping his being there would waylay any discussion about my failed engagement. My parents have been pressuring me to work things out with the ex. He's so sorry. I owe it to him to talk with him. Give him 5 minutes to explain himself. She meant nothing to him. He made a mistake. I'm cruel for shutting him out the way I have. How could I call the police on him? How could I do the same to his family? His parents? They're good people. They didn't deserve to be humiliated in that manner. He's having a rough time. He's depressed. Everybody is worried about him. He loves me, really loves me. He's learned his lesson. It's time to grow up and forgive him. Number. My date's presence didn't stop them from bringing it all up again. I lost my cool. Asked my father if he expected me to give my ex a pass every time he sticks his dick into anything that moves, like he does. I asked my mother how turning a blind eye to her husband's infidelity works for her. How does she hold her head up while having lunch with women that have slept around with her husband for years? Is that the kind of men, the life she wants for me and my sister? For her daughters? I asked if they had any idea of the impact that knowledge had on me and my siblings growing up. Knowing that Dad was late home from work because he was screwing his secretary. Knowing work weekend was code for dirty weekend with a woman not our mother. Did they not know why it was that of their 4 children, I am the only one that still talks to them? Do they not question why they were not invited to my brother's weddings? Why they have never met either of my brother's wives and children? Do they think my sister's silence is because she's being dramatic and throwing a tantrum? Really? I stood from the table, congratulated them on the loss of their last remaining child, and told them I hoped their arrogance, willful blindness, and misery was a comfort them to their last breaths. Then I left. My date, I should have saved him for a proper date rather than a FU to my parents. Took me to the nearest bar, let me cry on his shoulder while I proceeded to get shit-faced, then made sure I got home safely. The next day, he messaged me to see if I was alive and sent a double cheeseburger, large fries, and a large Sprite over with DoorDash. I didn't block my parents, but I haven't heard from them. It's been a week, and I've calmed down enough to feel regret. Not for what I said, but because I can see the looks on their faces when I made my final farewell. I crushed them, hurt them, especially my mother. Despite their faults, and there are many, I love my parents. I don't like knowing I hurt them. I'm feeling a lot of guilt about it. Update. It's been a minute since I was here last. Life has been busy, work has been busy, and updating Reddit wasn't on my mind. Apologies to all those that continue to send messages asking for an update. I figure better late than never. A quick recap. Lost my temper with my parents when they tried to push me to forgive and reconcile with my cheating ex. Some really hurtful and harsh truths were shared by me to them in the moment. Afterwards, I felt tremendous guilt. The regret started to eat at me. Where to start? First, a thank you to all who replied to my post. I tried to read every comment, and though I didn't post for the validation most of you gave, receiving it did lighten the load a little bit. It didn't take away from the guilt I carried, but I was able to work through that to see that, although my timing was off, what I said was absolutely necessary. Thank you, too, to some of those that sent me private messages rather than posting on the main thread. Having read your own stories of a similar upbringing, conversing with you has helped me to understand that my childhood and teens were traumatic, that those years left wounds that I'd never addressed until this all came about. One more shout out to those that sent harassing messages about my choices, those people that preached about the sanctity of marriage and how men are basic creatures with basic needs, those that attempted to school me in how to be a woman that needs to learn to do my duty by allowing a man his vices, and that it was really all my fault for not supporting my ex in his time of need. Special shout out to the men that offered to teach me how to be submissive and learn my place in this world. And last but not least, the sweet little chicken nugget that told me my reaction was proof that I am a serial cheater and my ex should have used a cattle prod on my happy place. It must have been tough for all of you when your women left. Big props to those ladies for escaping a life of misery with you. Now for what has happened since. My mother left my father not long after my post, maybe a couple of weeks after. She showed up at my apartment one night with her luggage. I can't explain how broken and pitiful she was. I brought her inside, held her, and my heart broke for her. I realized then that she had no one she could turn to. Absolutely no one. No family, no friends. I cannot help but wonder if she had been all alone for all the years of her marriage. And if me or one of my siblings had said something sooner, would she have had the courage to leave my father then? I'd never seen my mother, usually so dignified and unruffled, look so broken. It shocked me to see her that way. It worried me so much that I made her sleep in my bed with me. I called my siblings, and within days they all came to show support and love. Then it was me, my mother, and my sister sleeping in my bed. It was good for her to see that her children still cared. Because we did care, we did love her. It was the situation my siblings distanced themselves from. At first, my mother stayed with me. She was having a hard time of it. Years of humiliation, shame, and guilt ate at her. I was worried about her state of mind and didn't like to leave her alone. I couldn't take time off work to be with her every second of the day, so I took her to the shelter and we got her a dog. My thinking was if she had something to take care of, it would distract her from dark thoughts. I was hoping for a puppy because they're playful and would keep her busy. But she fell in love with a 5-year-old mixed breed, and he fell right back. He's a goof. We don't know how it happened, but we woke up one night to him howling because he had somehow wedged his head in between the spindles on the stairs. His whole head. We had to call the fire department to rescue him. Of course, my mother didn't think he was at fault, and she now refers to him as her baby. He adores my mother, though. My oldest brother moved some things around, then moved her across the country to live with him and his family. He thought she would do better if there was no chance of her running into Dad, or one of his many women. He found her a therapist, and that seems to be working. She is loving being a grandmother, and all reports are that she is an indulgent one. She has a separate in-law suite, so she gets to see them every day. My brother tells me when the kids go missing, they can now be found at Grandma's. My dad is my dad. He doesn't lack for company. I had a dinner with him not long after my mother moved across the country, where he introduced me to the new woman in his life. I reminded them both that I knew exactly who she was, considering she called my mother her best friend for all my life. Cue another awkward dinner. My dad tried to make it as pleasant as he could, but whenever she spoke to me, I would bring up a memory from my childhood of her spending time with our family and ask if she was sleeping with my father all the way back then. The next day, he called to tell me how disappointed he was with me. I felt it only fair to share my own disappointments. We argued for a bit. He tried to downplay all he had done over the years, tried to play the victim of his own actions. I ended up cutting the conversation short and blocking him. It was just over a month ago when he showed up at my door. I wouldn't let him in, and I'm sure that rattled him some. He told me he didn't want to lose me too. Say what you want about him, but he is my dad. I love him. I don't want to lose him either. He promised he wouldn't force me to interact with any of his women. So far, we have had a couple of pleasant outings that have gone well so far. I am cautiously hopeful that we can continue to be in each other's lives. As for me, well, I took that advice some of you gave me, and I am in therapy. It is humbling to come to the realization that though you may think you're fine, you are actually not. It has been almost unbearable to face all that history and excruciatingly painful to dig through it all. At the end of some sessions, all I want to do is head to the nearest bar and drink until I forget all about what I just went through to find out where it all started and why I am the way I am. I think therapy is one of the most difficult things I have ever done. I don't know how some of you have been doing it for as long as you have. I also don't know why you do it so willingly. I'm a crazy nutter for listening to all you nutters in the first place, but it is helping. Now, for the update most of you want. I cannot even tell you how many messages I continue to receive from people wanting to know about him. It was almost like you all were saying, "Girl, we don't care about whatever life crisis you're going through. Just tell us about the date." Well, I haven't replied to any of those queries because my post wasn't about him. Now I figure, in a roundabout way, I owe you something because you all played a part in where we are today. I won't give a rundown of everything that has happened between us, but I will give you a few things. He contacted me after seeing a podcast on YouTube. He sent me a link with the query, "Is this you?" It would be an understatement to say I was mortified. My mortification kept me from replying to him. I was so deep in my embarrassment that I didn't even bother to read the messages he sent me over the next couple of weeks. When I finally did read them, it was to find a whole heap of screenshots of people's comments. I'm going out on a limb by saying you don't need me to tell you the contents of the comments he was sending me. I eventually got back to him. It was difficult for us to make time to see each other. As I stated earlier, my life, both personal and professional, has been busy. He also has a life and work. We were only able to meet up for coffee a couple of times. I didn't think we were going to be able to grow a friendship, let alone anything beyond that. I've since learned that he is tenacious and persistent, like a dog with a bone. He kept at it until we found time to go on a second date. That date went well and led to another, then another. Then he introduced me to the two most important people in his life, his grandparents. His grandfather carves little wooden figurines, and I have since acquired a flock of wooden birds. His grandmother thinks I'm too skinny. She feeds me whenever I see her, and usually sends me home with food. He gets along with my sister and brothers. He came with me to visit my mother on her birthday and met them all. He was very gracious with her. I had him saved in my phone as Cheeseburger. He took issue with that because he bought me a double cheeseburger. So I started calling him Double Cheese and then shortened that to DC. He is still saved in my phone as Cheeseburger. He's an undercover Swiftie, and I don't quite know what to do with that. I don't have anything against Taylor Swift, but I sure didn't pick him to love her. He did use his little sister and niece as cover for his Taylor Swift love. Now he uses me. I am fine with being so used.